Hi there. Thank you for joining with me today. Jimmy Stewart, the actor, stood looking out the window of his hut during the last war, and he gazed out in the direction of the English Channel towards France, and he knew that tomorrow he would command a squadron of bombers on a mission over Germany, and some of the planes wouldn't return. And Stewart was afraid. He sat down in his bed and he switched on a small light and he pulled out a letter that was well worn and creased. It was a letter written to him by his father. And the note told Jimmy that everybody was scared of war. And his father included a copy of the 91st Psalm, and I read it here. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress. And with that promise, Jimmy had the courage to fly. We live in a scary world, don't we? It doesn't matter what your mission is in life. It may be to be a good mum, a good dad. It may be to give of your best at your work. It may be problems of dealing with your life as you get older. Or it may even be just trying to be a disciple faithfully in a confusing world. Uncertainty haunts us, as it did with many of the saints, as it did in the Old Testament with Elijah. He was having a bad time. Jezebel, that was the one who gave lipstick a bad name, was in the warpath. He thinks the world's against him. And the message comes to him, no more moping around. No more feeling sorry for yourself. Get on with it, man. And maybe that's the message we need to hear today. Get back in the battle. We're not alone. God is with us. On the evening of August the 27th in the year 1963, Martin Luther King was pacing the floor of the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C. because he knew the next day he'd be standing in the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, addressing a crowd of 250,000 people. And the dilemma which confronted King was how to express himself in the 8 minutes he was given. And all through that night, Martin Luther King worked on his speech, writing it one draft after another. His friends tried to convince him to throw away the speech and speak from the heart. And King was not for that. And so the vigil continued until the speech was completed. Later that day, he got up to speak, and there was an expectation in the audience, and slowly and deliberately King began to read the prepared text. After a few short paragraphs, he realised his words were not adequate. Putting the script aside, King spoke from the heart. I have a dream, he said. I have a dream today. And that speech didn't come from some prepared manuscript. That speech came from a man whose soul was moved by the Spirit of God. This world is an awful time, an awful place at times, and we all feel it, like Elijah. Almost tempted to say, as he said, only I am left, Lord. We look at what's going on in the world around us, and most of us can't get our head around that. Some of the things that we see happening are awful. And what we see worldwide, I bet we all see it in our own local community. Maybe you have to question any period in history like that, in which, but particularly today, in which people are saying God is dead and Elvis is alive. In 1860, a French chemist prophesied that within 100 years, man will know what the atom is. And he said, it's my belief, when science reaches that stage, God will come down to earth with a big ring of keys and say to us, gentlemen, it's closing time. Maybe as God called Elijah, the disciples and the great history changers of the past, Wilberforce, Martin Luther King, General Booth, the whole list. We may not be in that league, but he calls us to speak wherever we see injustice, bigotry, unfairness, discrimination. And like the word of the Lord that came to Elijah, don't give up. Get up. Just get on with it. Thank you for listening to me again, and God bless you.